Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. So today I wanted to discuss Tekken's heat mechanic, and I wanted to discuss my concerns with it. When Tekken 8 came out initially as the closed network test and the closed beta, I did not like the heat mechanic at all. As a matter of fact, when they demoed it to us for the first time, I hated it. I remember being at Amsterdam for the Tekken World Tour and seeing some of the things that were going on with it. I remember seeing the showcase that they showed us in one of the Tekken talks in the early days, and I saw the token system and I thought it was a terrible idea. And I remember they were showing us Paul and how he could do 2 death fists and he could dash out of them. It just looked so overwhelming that I thought it was going to ruin Tekken. Over time they nerfed it, and they nerfed it to a point where I thought it was acceptable and I actually came to praise it. Obviously I did not have much time with the heat mechanic at that time, but we are over 2 months into the game now, coming up to 3 months, and I feel like enough time has passed, enough changes have been made, and enough meta has been established for me to have a discussion about this. Now it doesn't mean I'm 100% on the ball, but the reason I'm making this video 3 months in is that I feel like I've played quite a lot of Tekken 8, I've seen quite a lot of Tekken 8, I use one of the top tier characters, so I understand how overwhelming some heats can be, and obviously we come across a lot of top tier characters when you're playing ranked because people will naturally flock to those characters. And my overall feeling with heat is that it might actually burn the lifespan of Tekken 8. Now I'll explain why, and I've got a list of suggestions here, things that I would like to see done differently. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they could cause more problems. Obviously we open this conversation up to everyone. Please leave your comments in the comment section below and we can discuss it, have a little back and forth as usual. So the first thing that I wrote down is that I think the damage needs to decrease as the heat bar burns itself out. So when you pop heat, let's say you do the heat raw.
Pause.
I think one good thing they added is that you don't get the full heat bar. It cuts it down to about 60%, I believe. But one thing I don't like is that no matter where the heat bar is, the damage on things remains the same, the access to moves remains the same, and the ability for you to use your heat burst if you have a slither of heat, I don't think is very good. So the first thing is damage, obviously. I think the damage as the heat bar goes down should be less than what it would be if it was full. I think if you pop it raw,
Pause.
you shouldn't be doing as much damage as when the heat bar is full. And when I'm talking about damage, I'm talking about the actual heat burst move. So if I do my heat burst and then I hit you with the special attack that can only be accessed in heat, it does the same amount of damage no matter where my heat bar is. And I think this is a little bit of a stupid thing. It comes across a little brain dead to me. Heat allows you to do so many silly things in this game. It turns every character into Super Saiyan 3, and it goes from being an aggressive Tekken game to just being oppressive. So I think damage being decreased as the bar goes down should be looked into. I obviously think it should differ between characters, but I think as a general rule of thumb, the less heat bar you have, the less access to high damage you should get. On the topic of moves, I think that some moves should be limited. What do I mean by this? Basically, you've got a character here like Feng Wei, and Feng Wei has loads of different moves in his heat that he doesn't have access to outside of it. Now he has access to the move itself, but the properties change. Certain moves that Feng Wei does and other characters, but I'll use Feng Wei here as an example as he is one of the top tier characters, are very, very powerful, very oppressive moves, namely the 3+4. 3+4 allows Feng Wei to restrict your movement on block or on hit. Now obviously on hit it's okay because you landed the hit. It's got a lot of evasive properties on it, so maybe it shouldn't do as much damage it does, especially because you can go for a follow-up. The follow-up itself is not actually part of the combo, so it does even more damage, and if you don't want to go for the follow-up, you have access to mix-ups. This is obviously very annoying for the defender because someone like Feng Wei, who again I'm just using an example because he's my main character, does a lot of damage and has great mix-up potential, and so it becomes an annoying situation. And the way I'm looking at it is that it might be fun as the person doing it, but when you're taking it, sometimes you can feel like you're being robbed, and I don't like that feeling in a fighting game. I know that puts people off. That's one of the major criticisms that I have of Mortal Kombat 1, and I think it's fair to levy these criticisms to Tekken 8. So a move like 3+4 should take off a hefty amount of heat bar. I would go as far as to say 3+4 is such a ridiculous move that it should be treated no differently from the heat burst. And this is someone that plays Feng Wei, right? I play the character. I think the move is so stupid that you should only get access to it once. Having the ability to do it twice can literally kill your opponent. If you pop heat and you have that move, in the right circumstances, especially with rage, you can kill your opponent. To reiterate, I think certain moves should have limited access in heat. I think they shouldn't be accessible accessible when the heat bar has reached a certain point. I think being able to access them at any point as long as the heat bar is there is kind of silly in my opinion. So I'm going to discuss the heat dashes a little bit now. The heat dashes in my opinion are quite problematic. The heat dashes in this game allow people to run up on you and enforce whatever kind of mix up they want. For the person doing it, it's fun, it's funny, your opponent is stuck in place, they have to take your bullshit. They can't sidestep, they have to guess if you're going to go high, mid or low. So the only thing they can do is stand block or crouch block. But obviously in a game that has over 100 moves, there's so many variables and so many things to consider that limiting somebody's options from sidestepping, in my opinion, is quite unfair. What I think they should do to the heat dash, when someone heat dashes on block, I think the defender should still have the ability to sidestep. I think that you're way too plus on block with the heat dash. I think heat dash when you hit somebody is fine, it's a combo extender, it's whatever you got the hit. That might be a discussion for another day, but I have less of a problem with that because you actually landed the hit, so you can extend your combo, kind of like an FADC. And as we saw in Street Fighter 4, the FADCs were actually nerfed on block, so if you did a Shoryuken for example and then you decided to dash forward, you were unable to do anything and actually you would get punished. I actually thought that was a really good change, because doing Shoryuken FADC would allow you previously to just continuously apply pressure, and that's not really fun. So I commend Capcom in that change with Street Fighter 4, and I actually think it's something that needs to change in Tekken. Now I'm not saying you should be minus so that you now get punished for heat dashing, because that might defeat the purpose of going Super Saiyan in heat, but I definitely don't think you should be as plus as you are. I think the defender should still have the opportunity to sidestep. Not having the opportunity to sidestep things is, in my opinion, a bit of an L. And again, it goes from being an aggressive Tekken game to just being outright oppressive, and that shit gets very annoying. I also think chip damage might be a little too high in heat. Chip damage in this game in general is quite contentious and people don't really know where they sit on it. I'm not actually a fan of chip damage in Tekken. Initially I didn't mind it, and I've made videos before saying it's not a big deal, it's a different Tekken game. Now that we've settled into this Tekken game and we've got a feel for things, it feels very out of place. It doesn't really feel like something you would expect to see in a Tekken game. I'm not a massive fan of it, but it's in the game, so we'll just have to deal with it. But one way I would deal with it if I was on the balancing team is that I would bring some of the chip damage down. Some chip damage in this game is just far too high. There's blatant examples of this. For example, Asuzena's while running 3-2. You've got some moves with Feng Wei where he'll do up 2 for example. Even though this is quite a hard move to hit, on block it's completely fine because it's safe. It does quite a bit of chip damage and you can kind of spam it. It's also one of those moves you don't really see very often and people are not used to dealing with it, and the chip can be a little bit absurd on it. There's other characters and other examples. Just in general, chip in Tekken is really weird. I'm not saying remove it because it's a system in the game now and I'm sure that would cause other problems, but I do think the chip damage should be brought down a little bit. The chip damage in this game is actually worse in some instances than Mortal Kombat, and I've been very critical about Mortal Kombat's chip damage system. Now luckily in this game chip damage can't kill you, so that's a big plus, but it can bring your life bar down quite significantly to the point where you haven't actually been hit yet and you've lost about 30%. I do find it a little bit weird, so I do think they should tone it down, especially in heat. Armor Crush heat engages is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Again, I play Feng Wei. Feng Wei has one, forward 1+2 is an armor heat engager, and it's just ridiculous. Why do you need armor to go into heat? That seems really stupid and really overpowered in my opinion. Victor's also got one. People are used to getting hit by that blade. I think it's forward 2. I'm not entirely sure what the notation is because I don't play Victor, but you all know what move I'm talking about. It's blindingly fast, it has armor on it, and it sends you into heat. It's just an unnecessary amount of power to the character. They already have armor on that move and the move is already safe. So not only has it got armor on it, has it got a heat engager on it, but it's also safe. Now you can duck Feng Wei's, but I still think that it's way too far in his favor and I would remove the heat from that. At the very least, if you didn't want to remove heat from the armored attacks, I think that when they go into that, they should start at 60% heat. There should be some penalty. It's just way too much oppression and aggression in this game, and there's very little consequences for doing stupid things. Now as a Feng Wei player, I'm almost at Tekken Emperor. I'm just about entering that phase now. I've got a couple more wins, and I can say as a mediocre Tekken player, I'm not very good at the game. I don't think so anyway. As a mediocre Tekken player, it's far too easy for me to pull off something like that. It also reaches very far, and there's multiple other characters with moves like this. Heat should not be attributed to armor smashes, but if you're going to do it, there should be a penalty on them. They should start at least 50% in my opinion. Now in this game, there's a lot of heat smashes that act in different ways. For example, if you do pulls, you can actually punish him after it, but there's some heats that you can't punish. For example, Feng Wei's. Now Feng Wei sends him into a stance, so you have the opportunity to guess high or low, but I do think heat smashes that put you at plus on block or send you into a stance or allow you to go for follow-ups should have their damage reduced. I think they're a little bit silly. For example, example, Devil Jin on block can go into his flying stance and then you're guessing again. There are ways around this, but again, it's super aggressive. There are obviously other examples of this. There are plenty of characters in this game that have very oppressive heat smashes. One of the characters that comes to mind also is Jun. Her heat smash is so over the top stupid and kind of breaks the immersion of Tekken. It's kind of like having a shotgun, and the shotgun shells come out in one frame, and she also gets health back from it. She not only gets health back from hitting you, she gets health back even when you block it. So it's a bit like you're not really rewarded for playing smart, you're kind of rewarded for doing silly things. Now I understand the name of the game is aggression in this. I completely get that. I understand we're in a new age of Tekken. And I did previously make a comment saying that this is Tekken now, that we just need to accept it. And when I said that, what I meant was that literally this is Tekken, right? This is Tekken 8. So in the literal sense, of course, this is what Tekken is now. But you don't have to accept it in the sense that this is not the Tekken that you remember. This is not the style of Tekken that you appreciate. And I can get on board with that. There's certainly things in this game that I don't like. I don't like how bad defense is in this game. I don't like how over the top aggression is in this game. And I thought it'd be good to point out how silly the heat mechanic is. Now there's other issues in this game, but this game revolves around the heat mechanic. The reason I have such a massive issue with it is that I do feel like it overwhelms the matches. Not only do you get it in every single round, but it seems like there's not many consequences for popping it in different areas. There's no damage decrease. It feels like it's on screen for too long. Certain characters can earn their heat back, for example King when he does the RKO or whatever other grabs he has in his arsenal, and it just feels like it takes away from what we remember of Tekken, and that is from the more modern Tekken games. I'd say 5 up till 7, including the Tag 2 game. This one feels more like it's entered an anime territory, and I do think heat is to blame for that. Like I said, there are balancing issues and there are things that seem too overpowered in this, but I don't like the idea of heat being the center focus of every single match. I think it could be a cool novelty to have in a match, but having it in every single round and then not having real consequences on it when you pop it, I do think it's a little bit lame, because when heat is not involved and you've both used up that mechanic, the game to me becomes a little bit more fun. It feels more like what I remember of Tekken. When heat is there and heat has been activated, sometimes you're too scared to move because the moves come out too quickly. There's even characters like Raven who essentially gains a projectile that does 40% damage or however much damage it does. It's difficult to play the neutral game in a game like Tekken where that is so integral to the game's overall design, or at least that's what we believed it to be. And so the reason I'm making this video is that I do foresee this game potentially struggling in the future. This is obviously season 1 and this is the early stages of Tekken 8. We're used to seeing Tekken 8 in the arcades for a long time, and then it comes out to console after going through several balance patches. So I'm not necessarily bitching and saying they've messed up and the game is going to die. I don't believe Tekken 8 is going to die. I do believe heat is going to burn its lifespan though. So I don't know how long the game will last in its current state. But again, because we are in season 1, and depending on how you look at it, we are still 2 seasons away from the game coming out in a state that we would have expected it to come out in. Even though Tekken 7 was pretty messed up, I'd say there is a lot of things in this game that are a problem, so I know they can change the heat as time goes on. So I'm not saying the game is going to die because of heat, but obviously I like to deal with things in the moment. I hear the argument that changes will come, but I'm not psychic, I'm not Professor Xavier. I don't know when those changes will come, and I don't know what form they will come in. We've already had a few changes that actually made things worse. There's been unjustifiable nerfs, for example to Kazuya, who is already a character that doesn't do as well as some other characters in this game and definitely has to work a bit harder than some of the other roster. I'd say a lot of the other roster. So we don't know what form these changes will come in. So of course that's why we talk about it on a day-to-day basis. But those are just my thoughts on the heat mechanics. Obviously there are other issues and other nuances surrounding them, but those are the ones that really stand out to me. And essentially I don't want heat to overwhelm this game. I don't want heat to be the complete focus of it. I think having it once per match is okay, but having it in each round kind of takes away some of the fun from Tekken, at least in my opinion. It also makes it very scary to approach certain characters, and I also don't really understand why some of them are safe on block. It's a little bit odd. It doesn't feel Tekken-y to me. It feels very anime-esque almost. I like my games to have consequences when I have powerful moves, otherwise it just feels like I'm going Unga Bunga mode and the fun starts to disappear very quickly over time. It also breeds a bad or uninitiated player base. It makes it so that people are no longer engaging with the core mechanics of Tekken and more relying on one of the more overpowered ones. I do acknowledge the fact that this game has been made more casual, and so this video might be seen negatively negatively by people that are more casual with this game, I can definitely foresee comments saying just get good at the game, and it's nothing like that. I completely acknowledge the fact that they've made it a bit more casual. They've lowered the ceiling from high level to low level, so I get there's a lot more people in the middle now that are able to compete, but those are just my personal opinions on the game. It's not going to be for everyone, and I don't take offense if you feel differently. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I do have a tier list video coming out of this game. I finally got around to doing one. Feel like now is the right time, and my tier list is going to look very, very different to other people you've seen on YouTube, and I'm going to explain why. I'm also going to explain why I've got 2 different tier lists, but more about that later on. I'll let you guys know when I'm releasing that. Anyways, take care, have a good day, stay blessed, peace.